She walked in quietly, wearing a plain dress and a warm smile, hoping for nothing more than to enjoy a simple evening with her husband's colleagues. It was supposed to be a celebration, an elegant gathering filled with laughter, music, and sparkling glasses. But from the moment she entered, the whispers started. Guests exchanged glances. Some scoffed under their breath. Others pretended she wasn't even there. She wasn't dressed like the rest, didn't carry a designer bag, didn't have a recognizable face. And for some people in that room, there was enough reason to treat her like she didn't belong. At first, she tried to ignore it, brushing off the cold shoulders and uncomfortable stares. But then came the moment that changed everything. A woman from the host's side, a sharp-tongued socialite with too much pride, approached her, made a scene, and asked her to leave. Just like that. No kindness, no explanation, only judgment. The crowd watched, some entertained, others quietly ashamed, but no one stepped forward to stop it. She walked out slowly, head lowered, heart heavy but still, with grace. What they didn't know was who she really was, and more importantly, who she was married to. Minutes after she left, her husband arrived, calm, confident, and unmistakably powerful. The same people who had just looked down on his wife now rushed to greet him, clueless of what had just happened. But when he realized she wasn't there, everything changed. He asked one question. Then silence fell over the room. What happened next left everyone speechless, because sometimes the simplest people have the strongest connections. And those who are underestimated can end up stealing the spotlight. Stay with me, because what her husband did next turned the entire evening upside down and gave every single person in that room a moment they would never forget. The moment he stepped into the room, there was a shift. Conversations paused, glasses stopped clinking, and eyes turned. He wasn't loud or flashy, but there was something about him. The kind of presence that made people straighten up without even realizing it. Tall, dressed in a sharp black suit, with a calm expression that somehow made everyone nervous. Some recognized him instantly. Others whispered his name as it slowly spread through the crowd. He was not just another guest. He was the man behind several successful companies, known for his quiet generosity and fierce loyalty, especially to his wife. He looked around, scanning the room. When he didn't see her, he asked a simple question: "Where's my wife?" At first, no one answered. A few looked away. One man coughed. The woman who had asked her to leave stepped back, suddenly pale. But no one dared speak. The air felt heavy, like everyone was waiting for someone else to explain. The truth was, most of the guests didn't even know who she was when she walked in. She'd never been featured in magazines, didn't post pictures of luxury vacations, and didn't wear labels meant to be noticed. She was just real, the kind of woman who remembered names, helped people quietly, and believed in treating everyone with respect, whether they were a CEO or a server clearing the table. But in that room full of ego and image, her kindness had been mistaken for weakness. Her simplicity had been misunderstood as being out of place. And when she was pushed out, no one had imagined there would be any consequence. But now her husband was here, and though he hadn't raised his voice, every person could feel it. Something was about to happen, something no one expected. And this wasn't just about a party anymore. It was about respect, and what happens when people forget the value of it. He didn't say much at first, just walked slowly through the room, his eyes steady, scanning each face. It was clear he already sensed what had happened, even before anyone confessed. A server, one of the few who had shown his wife kindness earlier, quietly slipped him a folded napkin with something scribbled inside. He read it, paused, then tucked it into his jacket pocket without a word. The guests watched, frozen in place. Everyone knew now they hadn't just insulted a stranger. They disrespected his wife. The woman who had forced her out tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "There must have been some confusion," she began, but he didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, he asked for the host. The host, clearly embarrassed, stepped forward with a nervous smile. He had thought inviting a man of such influence would impress the crowd, maybe even help with future deals, but he hadn't cared enough to know the woman by his side. That mistake was now becoming more obvious by the second. Meanwhile, outside, she sat in the car alone, unaware of the quiet storm unfolding inside. She was used to moments like this, not the drama, but the judgment. In every room filled with titles and money, she often felt like she had to work twice as hard to be treated with half the respect. But she never let it change her. Her husband always said her heart was her strength. And tonight, it seemed that truth was about to echo louder than ever. Back in the hall, a few guests whispered apologies to each other, already trying to distance themselves from what had happened. But others, some of whom had stayed silent earlier, now started feeling something deeper: regret. The kind that doesn't go away easily. The mood was shifting, but the moment of reckoning hadn't come yet. And when it did, no one would be ready for what followed. The room was quiet, too quiet for a party that had started with laughter and music just an hour ago. All eyes were on him now. He finally stepped forward, his voice low but clear, cutting through the silence. "Someone here decided my wife didn't belong," he said. "I want to know who made that call and why." No one answered. Some guests looked down at their glasses, others shifted uncomfortably. The woman who had caused the scene earlier gripped her clutch tight, trying to hold onto her calm, but it was slipping. The host cleared his throat, ready to give an excuse, but he was stopped by a glance. That glance, cold, firm, full of disappointment, said everything. People began to realize this was no ordinary situation. This wasn't just a social misstep. It was about respect, about how easy it was to judge someone by what they wear or how quietly they carry themselves. And now, the man everyone had hoped to impress was standing there, not saying much, but revealing everything. He took out the napkin from his jacket, held it up. "While most of you were busy staring," he said, "someone had the decency to tell me the truth." A murmur spread through the crowd. The guilt grew heavier, especially for those who had joined the whispers or laughed when she was escorted out. The tone of the room had changed entirely. People weren't just nervous now, they were ashamed. Meanwhile, outside, her phone buzzed. A simple message: "Stay close. It's not over." She read it, hesitated, then looked back at the glowing windows of the hall. She had no idea what was happening inside, only that something was building. Something big. Back inside, the tension had reached its peak. The music had stopped. The party had faded into silence. And every person there knew the night was about to take a turn they wouldn't forget. Just as the tension was thick enough to feel in the air, the ballroom door swung open. And there she was. She hadn't planned to return. But something in that his message made her change her mind. She walked in slowly, still wearing the same simple dress, still carrying herself with quiet dignity. The entire room turned. Some people actually gasped. Others looked like they wanted to disappear. But she didn't look at any of them. Her eyes were fixed on him, and his on her. The silence grew deeper. Her husband stepped forward and gently took her hand. "This," he said, raising her hand slightly, "is the woman who built everything I have with me. The one who supported me when no one knew my name. The one you pushed out like she didn't matter." And then came the twist no one expected. He turned to the host and added, "I was planning to announce a major partnership tonight. A project that would have brought millions into this circle." A few people perked up, hopeful. He continued, "But now I see, this circle isn't ready." The host's smile vanished. Murmurs spread like wildfire. One man stepped forward, trying to save face. "Maybe we acted too quickly. We didn't know who she was." And that's when her voice, steady, soft, finally cut through the noise. "You didn't need to know who I was," she said. "You only needed to treat me like a person." That sentence landed harder than any speech. Everyone felt it. But the night wasn't done. Just as she finished speaking, another unexpected voice came from the back of the room. It was the young server who had slipped him the napkin. "There's more you all should know," she said, stepping into the light. The crowd turned again, and in that moment, the entire evening shifted once more. All eyes turned to the young server, now standing at the center of the room, her hands shaking slightly but her voice strong. "I saw what happened," she said. "I saw how she was treated, and I heard what was said. But that's not all." She took a deep breath. Some of the guests here didn't just ignore her. They mocked her, laughed behind her back, and worse, some of them encouraged it. "I saw it all because they didn't think I mattered either." The room froze again. The truth hung in the air like a weight. The husband glanced at the crowd, reading every guilty face. His voice was steady, but colder now. "So it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice." One of the guests, a man in a navy blue suit who had been laughing earlier, stepped forward. "We didn't know. We thought she was just." He stopped, realizing too late that his words were only making things worse. "She's not just anything," her husband replied, placing a hand gently on her back. "She's my partner in life, my advisor, my compass. And tonight, while you were all busy proving your status, she showed more grace than this entire room." Then came the twist no one was ready for. He turned to the server. "What's your name?" "Emily," she said quietly. "Well, Emily," he replied, "you're braver than most people here. I'd like to offer you a full scholarship to any university of your choice, and when you're done, I want you to come work with us." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The very room that had been built on status just watched someone at the bottom rise simply because she stood up for what was right, and as he and his wife walked out, hand in hand, not a single person followed. The power had shifted. The real party was over. As they stepped out of the grand hall, the cool night air felt like a fresh start. She looked up at him, a small smile breaking through the tension of the evening. "Thank you," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. "You never needed anyone's approval. You just needed them to see who you really are." Inside, the guests were left to reflect on what had just happened. The party, once filled with chatter and superficial smiles, was now a quiet lesson in humility and respect. Many realized how easy it had been to judge without understanding, to value appearances over character. It was a moment that would stay with them longer than any business deal or social connection. The host, embarrassed but wiser, promised himself to rethink how he treated people in the future, especially those who didn't fit the usual mold. And Emily, the brave server, became a symbol of hope for anyone who ever felt invisible in a room full of status and wealth. Back home, the simple woman and her husband sat together, sharing a quiet moment away from the spotlight. Their story wasn't about luxury or fame. It was about love, respect, and standing up for what matters even when it's hard. She wasn't just a guest at a party. She was a reminder that kindness and dignity are the true markers of strength. This night taught everyone watching that real value isn't in the labels we wear or the circles we move in, it's in how we treat each other. Sometimes the simplest people hold the deepest power, and sometimes it takes just one voice to change the story. So next time you find yourself judging someone by their cover, remember this story, because the real strength lies beneath the surface, waiting for a chance to shine, and that chance could come when you least expect it.